Hi everyone. So I'm just here to talk about coping skills for anxiety that have worked for me. Something that could work for me may not work for the next person, and vice versa. It's very important to incorporate these coping skills into your day-to-day. You need to be consistent about it so you could actually use it when you're having an anxiety attack or high stress. So just a few things that have worked for me to alleviate my anxiety. So probably the number one thing for me is exercise. So I have a very busy work schedule. Sometimes I work a lot of overtime, and I have to make sure, even though I'm tired after work and all I want to do is rest, I need to make sure that I squeeze in some time for exercise. It could be a 30-minute exercise, an hour exercise, depending on how much time I have. What about exercise is good? I mean, obviously we know it's good for physical health. It also could help with depression. Depression, sometimes you have low motivation, low energy, and if you are able to get yourself out, exercise, or even indoors exercise, sometimes it could release good endorphins that we need to help ourselves feel better. Exercise kind of increases kind of like anti-anxiety brain chemicals, like serotonin, for example. Serotonin is one of them, just kind of like the feel-good chemical that we have. And also, you could gain confidence from, having a more fit body. It doesn't have to be necessarily just about weight, but just how you feel good, and that also helps with alleviating anxiety, because anxiety is often connected to low self-esteem. And so exercise helps me feel good when I'm feeling, days that I feel like bloated or like ate too much. It helps me alleviate that anxiety that I feel about that particular thing. Sometimes people find it helpful to breathe in through the nose and release through your mouth. Sometimes what I feel is helpful when I do that, it's kind of weird to explain, but basically, like, when you're trying to breathe out, try to breathe out in a small little line. You don't actually have to physically do this, but it's just a visual. Just being able to breathe without touching, feeling air through the sides of your fingers, to control that stream of breath that comes out. And in that sense, it's making you focus more on how you're breathing, and to not touch the sides of your fingers, instead of focusing on the anxiety that you're feeling or the thing that you're worrying about or stressing about. Yeah, people do that for however long they need, just to calm down and regulate their breathing systems. Doesn't pertain to everyone, because in fact, maybe breathing techniques may be something that may flare up someone's anxiety. And sometimes visualization helps. So there's this notion of, wherever you are, in a room, outside, wherever you are feeling a lot of anxiety, kind of focusing your mind on another task at hand. Find 5 things that you could touch, and then 4 things that you could see, 3 things you could hear, 2 things that you could smell, and then 1 thing that you could taste. By doing that task in your state of anxiety, it's basically to kind of distract yourself, because when you have anxiety, sometimes you disassociate, like I mentioned in the first video. And when you disassociate, it's kind of not being able to be present in the moment, and you have to bring yourself back to that moment. And that's about mindfulness, and I'll touch a little bit on that in a second. But you want to try to use all these things, these senses, to be able to bring yourself back to the moment, instead of overthinking about the past or the future, anxiety about a situation, things like that. You want to bring yourself just to the moment. Sometimes people like to visualize, just like close their eyes or open their eyes if they feel comfortable. What is something that makes me feel happy? Where's somewhere that makes me feel happy? Some people like to say, like, beach, or maybe they like to say, like, in a kitchen. I like to cook, so I like to be in a kitchen. Or in their own room. Maybe they feel most comfortable in their own room. And so visualizing that, and visualizing every single detail that you can, like every single detail that you point out, is taking you further and further away from the anxiety And again, focusing on the five senses, just like things like that, focusing on that, sometimes it does help me. Not all the time, I'm not gonna lie, not all the time. Sometimes I'm too all over the place that I can't actually focus on that kind of thinking, but sometimes it does help. So going back to mindfulness, so mindfulness is being present in the current state, physically, mentally, and your surroundings and all that. So being comfortable with that without being judgmental of the location or judgmental about your own feelings. So when you disassociate, that's the opposite of mindfulness. And so that's why there's mindfulness techniques that people use in order to come back to the present. One of them, like I mentioned, it was the visualization. Sometimes it's the breathing techniques. Sometimes it's the five senses things that I was talking about. Sometimes people use colors as a way to bring themselves back. Sometimes people feel that colors, let's say blue for instance, it could be very calming. But then on the other side, some people may find blue depressing. And so we have to be careful about that because people interpret colors differently sometimes. Sometimes people think red as anger, and then some people think red as love and passionate, things like that. So, to each his own. Knowing what colors calm you down is good, just because you want to fixate on those kind of colors. Like if you're looking around the room and like, let me think of 5 things that are blue. Bam, bam, bam. And then just kind of focusing on those because those hues calm you down. And just being able to identify that. Seafoam green, lavender are other good choices depending on your take on it. Music therapy is something that does help. Depending on my mood, I have to assess how I'm feeling. Sometimes when I'm feeling depressed, I don't want to, most often, more than not, I don't want to try to go towards a depressing sound or music or movie or whatever. But sometimes I do want to tap into those feelings because I just feel so overwhelmed. I feel like that I have to release it somehow. And maybe that means crying and kind of getting that emotion out of the way without feeling bad about doing it. Some people like to put upbeat music, dance music. Some people like to put podcasts. Podcasts are very helpful because they're, you learn something from it, and you're also, focusing on the topic at hand. Some people use comedy sketches because they want to hear something funny. They want to, again, feel better about how they're feeling and distract themselves. So also something else that helps me is journaling. I have a journal. I have many journals that I kind of use to be able to write down my thoughts, my plans, just kind of keep things organized. And I mentioned in the other video, I do like checklists and all that. It just kind of helps me keep focused on what I need to do. What is helpful to me about that is just, it's a way to help you work out through your anxious feelings that you have. Sometimes we may not know what's actually bugging us. Sometimes we don't know what's the cause of our anxiety or stress or worry. Sometimes we have to dig through that and figure out what's going on. And so journaling is a way to kind of just get all your thoughts on a page and try to figure out what is the stress in order to address that stress. Some people like to actually physically write. Some people like to, do a voice recording on their phone and just kind of vent to the phone and maybe hear it back later. Some people like to type it out, on their computer. It's easier for them. Whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be physically writing. It's also a good way, I learned, to be able to look back at the progress that you've made. Because sometimes we don't feel like we make progress with ourselves, with our mental health and all that. And so I learned that, with the journal, for instance, I'm able to look back past months, past years, and notice, like, I used to be in this really dark place, and now I am stressed out or I am feeling anxious, but it's not as bad as it was back then. And I was able to get out of that. And here I am now, struggling in my own sense, but also there's a reason why I'm still here, kind of thing. And so in a way, seeing that past evidence of, like, I've been through the worst of the worst kind of thing and I'm still here, it really makes me feel good as to, like, see, you got through this, you could get through this. Another thing that I found helpful is essential oils. I use 2 in particular. I use lavender oil and peppermint oil. So I have these two right here. And so these things are kind of like roll-on applicants, so you're able to roll it on wherever you may need it. So lavender oil, for me, it has a more calming effect. I've always loved the smell. Peppermint oil is actually very helpful to me because it helps for different reasons, but it's such a strong smell that it's like it kind of makes you more alert. What it does actually is for me alleviate headaches. So sometimes I like to mix the two. Sometimes I like to rub it here, mostly here in my temples, because I get a lot of tension headaches sometimes with the anxiety. Sometimes the headaches could be a source of not eating enough or not drinking enough, so I have to address that. Something I have found useful for my anxiety is pipe cleaners. So I don't know if you guys remember, but like from elementary school, like we used to have these, like, it's kind of like a fuzzy wire. It's like very colorful colors, different colors. That's kind of my go-to fidget toy if I do have it on hand, just because it's so easy to kind of wrap around your fingers or bend and twist, and the fact that they're so colorful, sometimes, again, that's a way to, like, you notice, like, a lot of fidget toys are very brightly colored. It's to be able to distract your mind and focus on that bright hue. It's really depending on what you prefer. Some people like fidget spinners. People like little Rubik's Cube, or maybe like a squishy ball, or Play-Doh, or like things of that nature. Sometimes like the magnetic beads that kind of click together. They look like kind of like metallic rocks. Some people like those. So whatever is soothing to you. You know, if you're going through something and you kind of talk about it with someone, even though sometimes it's embarrassing or you're afraid of how they're going to judge you. A therapist isn't supposed to judge you. A therapist isn't supposed to make you feel bad about what you've done or what you've said. They're supposed to be non-judgmental and also helping you figure out a way to alleviate whatever you're feeling with. And also, you know, being connected to a therapist is an easy way to kind of be connected to a psychiatrist for medication, if that's, again, a route that you would want to take. I mentioned in the last video, I don't use medications currently. I have before, but they didn't really help me out. But I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to trying again in the future if my anxiety becomes less manageable. But you know, that's anyone's choice. And even just talking to the psychiatrist to see your options, I wouldn't want you to feel like you're obligated to do that. I mean, you should be able to know more about the medications that you would take to make a more educated decision, you know, whether or not you want to take it. You could use the essential oils like on the go, but some of the things that we talked about is only like when you're at home. So like you kind of have to find different ways to alleviate any anxiety, because you never really know when it's going to come up. So you have to be prepared in different ways, whether it's at home, work, or just on the go. So just having different coping skills just helps you be more prepared for anxiety, stress, panic attacks, things like that. So it's just better just to spread your horizon on that and see what works for you. So yeah, so these are my coping skills. I hope they were a little bit helpful to anyone. If you guys have any questions about any of the coping skills that I mentioned, put that down below in the comment section. And yeah, just comment down below what you would like to see for the next mental health video. Bye guys.